Hello, everyone, and welcome to the official start of football. It is official because Sports Extra is back, right, Carly?
Yes.
This means that it is officially football season. Now, the NFL season kicked off yesterday with that Chiefs-Texans game. We're going to be talking about the Packers season opener, though, coming up in less than 48 hours now in Minnesota as they take on the Minnesota Vikings. All right, Carly, so we've been kind of chatting amongst ourselves about this Packers team. Real interesting year in that we don't have preseason to really sort through all of the changes that may or may not have happened to this team. In many ways, it looks like the same roster that they ended last year with. They went 13-3. So when you look at how this team fared last year, do you feel like maybe that could be indicative of what we see in year two under Matt LaFleur?
Yeah, I think when people say they're not going to go 13-3 again, it's surprising to me why they wouldn't have that confidence in the team that's the same as last year. I don't really think they caught too many breaks last year, so I think they will come out strong. But one thing about the no preseason games that Allen Lazard said is, we don't have those mental checkpoints this year. We don't, from training camp to the preseason, it's just a mental checkpoint to see where you're at. They go from training camp right to live games. So it'll just be interesting to see how both of these teams adjust to playing live right from practice.
Yeah, and we mentioned this is year two under Matt LaFleur. They're going to be more comfortable, but the results were really good in year one. Let's take a look at what Matt LaFleur was able to accomplish here in his first year. Look at these, most wins in his first year by a Green Bay coach. As I mentioned, they were 13-3. They make it to the NFC Championship game. Biggest one-year improvement in Green Bay history as they were +7 from the year before. Also the first Green Bay coach to win the division in that first year. So Matt LaFleur, year one was good. We mentioned some of these players really felt like year two could be even better. And one player who could blossom a bit in year two might actually be Aaron Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers was very good, very solid last year. One thing that he has really done well throughout his entire career is play well against the Minnesota Vikings. You see it here. 14-8-1 as a starter, 67.7% completion percentage, and then the touchdown to interception ratio there, that is ridiculous. 44 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So you can see why they were really curious, the Minnesota Vikings, some of these new cornerbacks that they have. How are they going to be able to hold up against a guy like Aaron Rodgers? I mean, it's going to be a major challenge, Carly.
Yeah, and it will also be interesting to see, Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur in year two together. The question always is, what's their relationship like? And this week, Aaron Rodgers said, #friend goals, which I know made all of us laugh when he said that, but it's serious. Over the offseason, he said over Zoom calls, they just developed such a great relationship and more of a friendship than just a working relationship. And I think it'll be fun to see how that translates onto the field, that trust and that comfortability with each other in year two of Matt LaFleur.
The big question for this passing game, though, is who's the number 2 receiver, right, Carly?
Yeah. To me, that's obvious that it's Allen Lazard, just what he proved last year with 35 receptions, 477 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The question is that number 3 receiver, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That's who I'm looking at for that. He averaged the longest catch reception-wise last year at 17.4 yards per catch. He's got the speed. We've known that, but he's just been inconsistent, and that's why he really hasn't, stepped up as that prime target for Aaron Rodgers. And I think Rodgers pointed him out particularly in camp this year, saying he's been the most impressive receiver to watch, especially in the last 10 games of training camp, last 10 practices, And Aaron Rodgers doesn't really point out guys too much. So when he says something like that, it makes everyone's ears perk up. And I'm excited to see what MVS will do week one, especially with his confidence from 12.
There is a ton of pressure on Allen Lazard to produce. Remember, they brought in Devin Funchess in the offseason. He was supposed to be basically their number 2 or at least a number 3 right hand in hand with Allen Lazard. He opted out this season. They didn't add anybody else. They didn't draft anyone, which of course was a point of contention for a lot of Packers fans as well. They need MVS, Equanimous St. Brown, somebody like that to really step up at least into that third role, if not challenge Allen Lazard for that second spot, as they need to find some pass catchers. Let's not forget, the tight end position's kind of been revamped too, in that they've gone away from Jimmy Graham now, and it is Mercedes Lewis, who's been with the team for a couple of years, but is more of a blocker at this point. And they're looking at the young guys. Somebody has to step up, Jay Sternberger or Robert Tonyan. along with Josiah DeGuara, who was the third-round pick, is going to be mixed in as sort of a tight end hybrid type player. But they need some pass catchers to really step up. Let's talk about the run game a little bit, though, here. Aaron Jones is in a contract year. He also has some competition for carries back there. Now, he's going to be the guy. You look at the numbers he put up here last year, ridiculous. 1,558, this is total yards, 19 total touchdowns. He was a touchdown machine. But they brought in A.J. Dillon with their second-round pick. And another guy that Aaron Rodgers has mentioned this offseason is Jamal Williams. So, Carly, I think it's pretty clear the Packers, when they drafted A.J. Dillon, they want to do what Matt LaFleur's previous team, the Tennessee Titans, did. They want to run the football here again this year. We saw a lot of that last year. I think it's going to be a huge storyline from game one this year is running the football. Yeah,
and they have 4 running backs now with Tyler Ervin, who they call Swerve. So, 4 guys who can do different things. So that'll be interesting to see how Matt LaFleur incorporates all 4 guys into that offense, since they all have different skill sets. And speaking of Jamal Williams, another guy that Rodgers and LaFleur pointed out in training camp, just saying how he's improved as a wide receiver. So we might see him a little bit more in that role, kind of like Aaron Jones last year. So it'll be fun to watch these running backs.
By the way, if you have some comments for us or questions, go ahead, chime in here. We got Mary saying, can't wait for the game.
Me too, Mary.
So, yeah, we're all pretty excited about this. I saw some Go Pack Go as well. If you have any questions about this team, too, feel free to jump on. Again, we're on your Facebook Live. If you're watching it right now live on Facebook Live, feel free. Send a question your way. We'll try to get to those questions here before we get off. Now, we also wanted to talk about this defense for the Green Bay Packers. They ended up being a very good scoring defense. You see top 10. They were very opportunistic, Carly, but there was one major blemish that could be an issue this week against Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, 23rd in run defense. So they were giving up 120 yards rushing per game. And then, Dalvin Cook in week 1 against the Vikings, or their first game against the Vikings last season, Dalvin Cook had, 154 rushing yards in that game. So he once again will be a threat, and that's if he plays. I know there's some speculation with the contract with Dalvin Cook as well. But then also you look back to that NFC Championship game, which I know just kind of hurts your heart when I bring it up there, but 4 touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns there. So the Packers have something to prove defensively in stopping the run, and that's something they focused on this offseason. Mike Pettin said, you got to take it personal at some point. What a test. Week 1 against Dalvin Cook.
I expect the Minnesota Vikings are going to run the football a lot here. Obviously, that's been their bread and butter as well. Kirk Cousins, I guess it's an insult nowadays to call somebody a game manager, but that's more or less what Kirk Cousins is. And with Stephon Diggs gone there, they do have Adam Thielen out in the passing game. He is still a major threat, but then they've got to work in some new guys. So I think the passing game, with no preseason games to work with for Minnesota, I think they're still kind of ironing out how these roles are going to work. What they do know is Dalvin Cook, he can handle a lot of carries, at least when he's healthy, and going into week 1, he is healthy, so he's going to be a major storyline here. By the way, we mentioned A.J. Dillon earlier. Chris says his legs are the size of my head.
They call him Thunder, right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they went famous, I believe, on Twitter or on Instagram or whatever, some pictures of, he has a very large legs that make him very hard to bring down. And that was one of the things he talked about, is how much effort he puts in working out on those. He is going to be a tough guy to bring down. A.J. Dillon, more of that bigger, kind of that big bruiser that the Packers maybe didn't necessarily have with Aaron Jones, who's more of the elusive guy. Jamal Williams kind of somewhere in between. So a guy that could complement maybe the 2 returners that they have. All right, so moving on now, it is prediction time, Carly. Okay. It is your favorite time.
Yeah.
You love to do this. All right, we always
you always copy mine. So do you want me to go first? Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go against the spread now. Minnesota opening at 3-point favorites. They're now at 2.5-point favorites. So we'll call it 2.5 points. Minnesota favored at home. What do you think happens? Do the Packers beat Minnesota, or at least cover that spread? Okay,
so when looking at history, 23 of the last 35 meetings between the two teams were decided by 7 points or less. So I am taking the Packers, and I think they're going to win 24-17.
Okay, so you have the Packers not only winning, but winning by a touchdown. Okay,
right,
yeah.
Right.
So again, they're the underdogs. We should mention last year the Packers 6-0 against the NFC North. They didn't lose a single game, and I do think that there is a chance that maybe this Minnesota defense isn't what we've seen in previous years. Because remember, they've lost some guys on the defensive line. Danielle Hunter is not going to play in this game. He's on the injured reserve. So they're working in some new guys up front, and that has been really where they've caused a lot of damage in the past, is with that pass rush. And I mentioned they have some new corners that Aaron Rodgers is going to go against. They're looking at some young cornerbacks stepping in for their longtime guys there. Now, they have some great safeties on the back end, but the corners, the guys that are going to be going up against Devontae Adams, are going to be relatively unproven commodities, at least at this level. So I really think the Packers might be able to put up some points. You mentioned 24. I think that's a pretty good number. And we'll see what the Packers defense has done to improve in the run game. That's the scary part. Dalvin Cook could go for 250. I mean, we saw Raheem Mostert go nuts in the NFC Championship game. Dalvin Cook has that much ability for total yardage. But, yes, I'm going to copy you again, okay? So the Packers are going to win. And not only are they going to beat the spread, but they are going to win this game outright. I'm going to take the Packers to win this one. What do you think here? Go ahead and send us in your predictions. I'm curious if we have any. Let me scroll down real quick and see. Debbie wants to know, when is the game? Sunday at noon, Debbie. That's going to be in Minneapolis. And we should mention, no fans, right, Carly? So going to be a unique atmosphere for these teams, which I know they kind of all mentioned is going to be a little odd. Right,
and you know, it was funny yesterday. We heard Patrick Mahomes at the line of scrimmage using the word Lambo, Lambo for that play call, and that's something Aaron Rodgers said. He said, it'll be tough when the TV copy is hearing what he's saying at all times when he's calling the plays and making adjustments. That'll be a huge thing that he's focused on this year, is, you know, changing up those words, because we're all going to be able to hear them.
Bold prediction here from Chris. Packers by 17.
Oh.
That's pretty bold. Maybe a little too bold for me, but Chris, I like that. You're just putting it out there, man. Just go for it. Just go all in. You know, that's fantastic,
They'll
Chris.
appreciate
I appreciate
that.
It. Yeah.
They think they're flying under the radar, so they'll like that, Chris.
And this is the beginning. This is week one for us, and we are in it to win it, right, Carly? So we are going to be here doing these sports extras on Facebook Live. Then you'll see them later on our website as well, WKOW.com. Every week we'll be talking about the Packers, and who knows, maybe in a month or 2 or 3 we'll be talking Badger football as well, as that could get started at some point. The Big Ten, of course, trying to figure out what they're going to do next for their next move. But for now, we're going to sign off here on our first edition of the 2020 NFL season Sports Extra. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Carly, say goodbye to the fine people out there.
Good night. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.